or drink if you want to. We usually start a couple minutes late, right? Let people snag in, or right on time.
You start whenever you're ready. If you do start, you may just have to introduce themselves and kind of do that kind of general stuff to get the ball rolling, and then start on the meeting. That's one way to do it. That way nothing significant happens. You can kind of build it.
Yeah.
The key thing is really is
We're supposed to have 20-something people, so I didn't know if introductions were really, can't hurt. Oh, excuse me. Before we get started, can we go around the room and quickly introduce yourself and your department? I'm Ed Gatsky from Chemical Engineering.
I'm from Pharmaceutical and Biomedical Sciences.
David Oliver, I'm also from Pharmaceutical and Biomedical Sciences.
Janine Blue, I'm from Educational Studies.
Sherry Shingle, I finished school in Basic. Rahna Edra, I'm from the Exercise Science Department. And Hazel, I'm from Epidemiology.
Muriel Raborn, I'm from the HR Foundation Department.
So my name is William Ray, I'm from the Electrical Engineering.
Travis Wagner from Gender Studies. Corey Burton from Criminology, Criminal Justice.
William Allen, Office of the Provost, After Work, Professor Program, Southeast Alaska, Graduate Education and Responsibility.
Very good. Well, I apologize for some of the wires around. We're trying to get our videos starting to stream online, so you don't have to come to the CTE necessarily. Hopefully you'll be able to watch it online. That's something we haven't been able to do for the last couple of years. So we're testing that out today. I don't know if you know about it, but they're having an active shooter discussion tomorrow. We're hoping to have broadcast. So that's another one that's came up at the last minute that you might see an email in your box about because it's very, very, very last minute. Before I move on, I'll forget this if I don't ask you to do this. You have a survey. We'd like you to do the evaluation before you leave. And there's a list of the goldenrod so you can see what's coming up for the rest of the semester. As Dr. Evil said in one of the Austin Powers movies, allow myself to introduce myself. I'm Ed Gatsky. I'm from Chemical Engineering. I'm Associate Director for Technical Pedagogy here at the Center for Teaching Excellence. I just started a couple of months ago. Today, I'm going to talk about bullet points. So please stop me if you have any questions or about PowerPoint and how to use it. If you have any questions at all, we probably all use PowerPoint, right? Everybody uses PowerPoint. Everybody's had to sit through terrible PowerPoint discussions. And I'm starting out with a very basic default, what PowerPoint does to you when you throw it up on the screen. It's very plain. You can pick themes, make it more colorful, but in general, it looks terrible. And it's not very appealing for students to be involved in. We don't want to burden instructors with too much effort. Right? We like to make PowerPoints, and we're usually running late at the last minute putting slides together. But I'm going to try and show you some stuff that you can try out without too much extra time that might help out when you're putting slides together. And I'm also going to go through some of the basics, some things you might want to remember, or you may not, maybe you don't realize it, but some other people may have issues with it. And again, this may be just style, maybe one person's attitude versus another person on PowerPoint, but I'm going to try and give you some things that I try and tell my students. So, I had a colleague that gave a technical presentation, and this was one of her slides. Fluorescent background with text. This is something I think was terrible. I couldn't look at her slides because every slide was a different color. Can you tell? Is that one different? That was supposed to be green, that was supposed to be yellow. I'm not very good at getting fluorescent colors on PowerPoint. She found a way. Oranges, purples, it was awful. The whole thing was terrible. Another friend of mine came with blue background slides. Blue is a beautiful color. He showed up and gave a great technical presentation, but it's not a lot of contrast. This is a mistake people often make. They think it's beautiful Oh, it looks great on my screen, on my LCD in front of me. This will be great when I go to presentation in a well-lit room with a low-rent projector. But his was actually worse. It was actually black on blue, and the whole presentation looked like this. The entire presentation. All the figures were black on blue. And we couldn't see a thing. We had to sit through the whole presentation. At least I was awake for the fluorescent presentation. Every slide, I was awake. Yes, ma'am? I can get handouts, or I can send you, if you have your email, I'll send you a link to this. I meant to put it on online, but we were scrambling trying to get the projector up and running for streaming. But we're going to try and get this on. So make sure, if you contact me afterwards, I'll get your email. My wife made me put this slide in because her very first technical presentation at Oak Ridge was green background with pink text. Pink and green's a beautiful combination. Again, you see the sorority girls running around with that all fall and spring. But it doesn't translate well, especially because red and green, red and pink, a lot of people are colorblind. 8% of males, 0.5% of females, depending on whose numbers you believe. So red and green are two colors you want to avoid. It's great for Christmas time, but some people can't distinguish those texts. I'm not colorblind, I can't distinguish it. The contrast just isn't there. It's terrible. So contrast is a big issue when you're trying to make PowerPoint, and that's one of the basic things you have to get sorted out. So my history, I interviewed it in 1999, and my PowerPoint slides ate all of my equations, which is bad for an engineer who has a lot of equations. So when we pulled up the PowerPoint right before my talk, none of the equations worked. They were all like wingdings fonts, all terrible. So luckily I had hard copy slides for overhead. It's not as much fun, but it worked. Nobody carries backup copies to research presentations anymore. We used to do that all the time because the technology wasn't there. It's gotten a lot better. I've seen a lot of failures at research conferences. Compatibility issues. We spend 15 minutes of a 20-minute slot trying to get the computer hooked up. Things are getting better in the last few years. I haven't seen so much of that. But I have seen people with slides that are full of 12 or 8-point text. SIAM, the mathematician guys, I go to SIAM conferences. They have some of the worst presentations I've ever seen in my life. And they will give you basically copies of their paper in 8-point text and read it to you. I've seen that. I've seen people that have problems with English reading their slides in 12-point text. So these are things we want to avoid and just never do. And if you see students doing it, tell them not to do that ever again. I teach the junior lab in chemical engineering sometimes, not every year. This is where they have to present. They write 50 or 60-page papers, and they have to do a technical presentation. So I gave them a list of things I was looking for, things not to do. And then every time they do a round of presentations, my list would grow. I'm like, these are more things that are terrible. How can you think of doing these things? Who comes up with this? And luckily, after a couple of years of doing this, my list is not growing as quickly, but I still get surprises occasionally. So because you see stuff that just doesn't make any sense, it's hard to look at, it's hard to read, you don't think about it, but people trying to be creative can do some strange things occasionally. We had an upgrade, if you're on the Windows world. In 2007, the new Office has this ribbon thing, and I refused to go to it for many years. And I kept complaining about the new PowerPoint, and one of my students said, it's 3 years old, it's not new anymore. You've got to start using it. So I realized I can't stick with the old stuff forever, and I'm trying to make the transition. I had troubles. There's like a little thing you have to click on to save your files. It looks like a Windows icon. I didn't even know you could click on it. I could never figure out how to save my files. It drove me insane. And I'm supposed to be good at technology. I use computers all day long, and I couldn't figure out how to save my files. So just changing little things from one version to another is difficult sometimes. But I think I'm getting a little bit better up to speed. I used to be a complete Jedi master of PowerPoint. I'm getting a little bit better with the new PowerPoint that's now, what, 6, 7, 8 years old? So, I'm sorry my slides are still terrible. I'm trying to work into some better approaches. So we're going to go through some basic formatting, simple suggestions, some visual stuff, the more advanced stuff, and then give you a few more examples. So, if you don't know about Slide Master, this is the first thing I yell at my students to do. You've got to learn about Slide Master. Slide Master is very, very important. It allows you to set a template or a standard for your slides so you don't have to go back and reformat things so much. Move things around, change up sizes of stuff. So you need to work with Slide Master before you probably do anything and get your Slide Master templates straightened out. I personally like to have pretty big fonts because I don't like to have lots of words. So I like 20 or 24 point fonts because I have bad eyesight. I'm legally blind without my contacts in. And when students sit in the back of the room, they can't see a thing. I like to be able to see stuff like this. Some people like smaller text. It's up to you. In Slide Master, the default PowerPoint puts stuff in funny places. I like to move it around a little bit so I can fit more text on if I need to. So little things like my title, I want to make sure my title can be 2 lines. I want to make sure my text box is pretty big, bigger than the standard. So I do little tweaks on my basic PowerPoint slide. I change the footer locations. If you want footer information at the bottom of your slides, you can move that around, change the font so it doesn't take up as much space. By default, PowerPoint is I don't like the defaults. Maybe you do like the defaults. I think it takes up too much space. You can add a little bit of color here. So you can make your own theme, put a couple of images on there, and it'll show up on every slide. So what am I talking about? If you don't know, I'm sorry if you know about this. I'm going back to sort of something that's sort of basic, I think, but a lot of people don't understand how to use this to their advantage. You open it up and it looks like this, and you can just move these things around and make edits here, and all of your slides will have that kind of style. So you can move the boxes, change the fonts, change the sizes of things here, and then all your new slides will follow that format without having to go back and reformat every slide individually. It saves you a lot of time if you get this straightened out and into a nice, robust design that you can use pretty well, that you're happy with. And you'll make tweaks on this after you use it for a while. You say, oh, this doesn't work very well for me personally. You make some other changes. I had an engineering class. We took kids to Germany, but before we went, we had them make PowerPoint slides. So I gave them a template. I set up a template for the class, which is pretty close to what I usually use. I've got some footer information, the class name, date, what slide number they're on, some image information. USC has a bunch of official logos you can use. If you can find them online, you can probably just steal something off of a Google search for images too, for official. I mean, but you can get the official logos, which are actually big, nice images if you ever want to use them for stuff. They'll allow faculty and staff to use them. So I gave this to my students, and they still had trouble with it, but at least it got us into some sort of basic, sort of similar standpoint where we could get our slides together. I told them I'd like them, I know everybody has different points of view on this. We typically steal images off the internet to put in our presentations, or borrow, I should say. Fair use, we're borrowing things, but we should use citations. I think we should use citations. So I encourage my students to put a citation for where they got that image from, but I put it pretty small so it's almost not even noticeable. You're not going to, in reality, you're probably not going to be able to read that while you're sitting here, but if you got a hard copy of the presentation, you could at least go look up the image, or you can probably see it came, oh, this came from the New York Times, or whatever website it came from. I think that's a good practice if you're going to borrow images from somewhere. One thing, I had 2 advisors in graduate school when I was working on my PhD. One of them was all about the math, and one of them was all about the presentation. Fonts and colors, fonts and colors. You had to have good presentation. But you need to be consistent. One thing in the new PowerPoint is it changes your size of your presentation. If you type too much text, it'll change it smaller. It drives me insane that it's changing the format on me. The autocorrect feature. You can turn that off. I haven't figured out how to do it. I just deal with it and be aware of it. Because I work on 3 or 4 different machines, and if they're not all set up the same way, they're not going to do the same things. Another thing I have to teach my students, that you need to, if you have a schematic, it's probably not too bad to do it in PowerPoint using the PowerPoint drawing tools. It takes you a few minutes to do it, but you get a schematic. I've seen students bring in something like a cell, some sort of model from biology or some sort of cycle, so whatever, different systems, and they take an image when it really wouldn't have taken them but 5 or 10 minutes to recreate that in PowerPoint for themselves, and then they have ownership over it, and that's their version of that they can use forever. So I think it's better, even if it doesn't look as professional necessarily, as a textbook image that has all the beautiful artwork in it, but you can represent that by using PowerPoint to put those designs together yourself. It takes a little bit of time, but I think it's more worthwhile than stealing images if you can avoid it. And if you import them, I'll go through some examples. If you bring them in from Word or other sources, Paint is one of the ones I see a lot. I don't like Paint. You can't do a very good job with Paint. There's some different ways to bring in images. If you just use the PowerPoint tools, that's what it's designed for. They work best that way instead of trying to bring stuff in, because compatibility is an issue. They have different rules I've seen on information flow. Some people say 3 to 4 points per slide. Some people are pushing the 6x6 rule where you have 6 bullet points with 6 words apiece. But the basic idea is you don't have an entire slide with paragraphs of text. One of my minor rules for me is I try and avoid any information that's more than 2 lines. I like to have 1-line bits, but if I have 2-line bits, it's just too much for me to I have to actually start reading instead of just seeing the concept. But that's just a personal issue for me. Everybody has different little things that set them off. I like using transition slides too, so it gives you a point to stop. You can maybe show the outline again and say, okay, now we're going to move into something else, and you get the whole audience re-engaged if you move from one thing to another. And there are little things, if you're in the PC world, you can customize your interface. Like I said, I couldn't figure out how to save stuff, so I found the button for save, and I put it on the customization box. So I move that, all the buttons I use all the time, subscript, superscript, save, zoom in, zoom out. That kind of stuff, I put it where it's very accessible because the new design is difficult to use. Hopefully, how many of you guys are Windows people? How many of you guys are Mac people? So a little bit of each. Most of the stuff I'm talking about today is Windows. So I haven't used a Mac a whole lot, especially with Office.
There is PowerPoint for Mac, but it's 11. And I use both because it works. I have Windows, I still have the form. I do think the Mac is better. The way it's oriented.
The new orientation that we've had for a few years and the Windows side is difficult, I think, because things are buried a little. They used to have, like, you click on File and all your functions were there, but now it's sort of buried within the ribbon system. I think it's confusing. I'm getting better. One thing a lot of people don't know about, if you're trying to move stuff around, PowerPoint, you see these jumps. Control, if you hold down Control and hit the arrows, it does little steps instead of big steps. So if you're trying to arrange stuff, fine-tuning your boxes or move something around a little bit, you can usually you just up arrow around with everything. This is a useful tool for trying to line stuff up, trying to make stuff get right where you want it to. Control and arrow keys. I mean, it's a small thing, but if you're not aware of it, that can be a very useful tool if you're trying to get everything straight. So, there's a lot of people that don't like PowerPoint. If you start looking around, they think it makes you dumb. And this first New York Times article came from a professor at Yale who's written a nice 35-page article on it, on how the bad stuff from PowerPoint. So, but I don't think we're going away from PowerPoint, although the Swiss have tried to outlaw it. There's a political party based on outlawing PowerPoint. I hadn't heard about this. I somehow missed this one, but I did hear about McNeely of Sun Microsystems years ago trying to ban PowerPoint. The whole company, they said, why don't we just go to hand drawing slides on a transparency, so we don't waste all of this time doing PowerPoint formatting. So like I said, I'm going to try and show you stuff that gives you these tricks so you don't have to spend all your time formatting. You can spend more time polishing up the content you've got so it's a little more visually interesting. So there's a survey. What do students not like? Too many words on a slide. Clip art. Lots of annoying animations. Templates with lots and lots of colors. So all the crazy templates that Word gives or PowerPoint gives you, students don't like those beautiful templates necessarily. All the animation you can do these days, it's annoying, it gets in the way, it's confusing. Clip art, I like clip art, but students don't apparently like clip art. And some people overuse it, putting clip art everywhere. I've done that occasionally, and I've tried to back off on it. And again, too many words on a slide, it starts to be like a book instead of a presentation. What do they like? Visual stuff. Graphs. That takes more time, though. It's easier to knock out a bullet point slide as opposed to put stuff in a graph. Bullets are helpful for organizing information. You need to know these things. Here they are in a list. So list stuff, there's other ways to present it that's interesting, but bullet points are a basic concept that we get used to, but there's limitations. You can't show things like hierarchy or relationships. It helps you structure your lectures because it basically is like an outline. You can use it as an outline for how you flow everything. And the students really want the verbal explanation. So I've been doing handouts in class, and the students, that's what they like. They don't want to copy 10 pages of notes anymore. They want to watch my PowerPoint and take notes on the handouts, mostly. That's what my students give me as feedback. So on to some of the slightly more advanced stuff. Start out with animation, which is one of the first things people like to play with. So animation can be useful. I have to say that. So you can stage your information and slowly reveal values. But there are drawbacks. You can't go back and forth in your slide presentations as easily. I think that's annoying. Some student asked for something a while back. It's a lot harder to click back when you have 10 animations per slide. If you have a couple per slide, it's still annoying. There's ways to get around that to shortcut navigation, but it's distracting if it's overused. So if you have lots and lots of these animations, it becomes, oh, let's see what they're doing next. Why are we doing more animations? It's trying to be exciting, but it's really just annoying. And it's especially annoying, I think, if you do all the there's lots of options for animation these days. You know, sparkles and stars and wipes, and I stick with appear, and I can stick with chunks of stuff appearing. That's just me. Maybe I'm a boring engineer. But I try and keep it a little bit there, and it also fails between versions. So if you're moving between Mac and PC, you can have issues. I've seen this destroy students almost in tears when they run into this issue. So there are issues with animations you may want to be wary of. And it can be, this can be one of the things that's time consuming. Very, 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 very difficult to do. Especially, again, all the improvements in the new PowerPoint on the Windows side, I think are actually worse. It's harder to do animations. I mean, there's more things you can do, but the interface is difficult to use. So I'll show you one of the tricks I've used a lot. And one of the things I've also found out recently, if you want to, usually you want to view your presentation on the PC side, you hit F5. That would start your PowerPoint from the beginning so you can see the slideshow. You need to test out your animation, so if you want to test out your slide, you should hit Shift F5 to start out the PowerPoint, the slideshow from the current slide. So you don't have to go all the way up to slide 27. So that's another useful tidbit I think I've been using a lot more and more these days. So the first thing I like to use is this multi-slide trick. You make your slide, you get it perfect, you copy it, and then you erase stuff. So it's like animation, but all it is like 3 or 4 slides. So here's a big, nasty schematic. Lots of information, way too much information. Students spend a lot of time trying to show this. And if I just start up and try and lecture in class on a topic like this, it'd be just too much stuff. So instead you start out with just the key part of whatever it is. In this case, this is all PowerPoint objects, but there's no reason you can't put like big white blobs over the stuff you don't want to show. So you can basically cover up parts of an image if you want to. So you start out and you talk about something and you stage your information one bit at a time. And all this is 2 slides. My second slide adds a little bit more. And my third slide adds how you purge the system and circulate the different liquids. And then our computer system to collect the data, and then our auxiliary system to measure viscosity. And eventually, the student gets to the point where they can comprehend everything because all that information has been staged. And it's not too bad to navigate through. But like I said, you have to get the slides perfect. Because if you nudge something in one of the slides, if you move something around, you have to go back and edit in all your slides. You basically might as well restart the whole process.
So do you start with the slide, that slide?
I start with the perfect slide with all the information that's very busy. And I copy it like 4 times. And my first slide has most of the stuff erased. The next slide has some of the stuff erased. And then it's a little bit confusing to do it this way. But then this one works from one PowerPoint version to another. It should. You never know with Microsoft. But the other trick I'm going to tell you about later, if you save everything as a PDF, this will be different pages in a PDF, and it will still work if you have to use a PDF to watch your slides, because it'll be slide, 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 slide with the animation intact. Now, this is what I mean by normal PowerPoint objects. You have PowerPoint lines and boxes and colors. This is what the student gave me originally for the same experiment, which is just cut out of I think this is out of a Word document. You can use some drawing tools in Word. So students, if you're working with students and trying to develop skills, the schematics can be terrible, or images, or they don't, maybe even though they've worked with PowerPoint for decades in elementary and middle school even, a lot of people aren't very experienced at how to make good visually appealing information. This is one of my research slides, but I also teach classes on this, so I recycle this one. We have a problem where we pose a mathematical problem and we have to solve an optimization problem, and we look into the future using information in the past. We solve that problem and we move one step into the future. So we solve that problem and we implement something and then we do it again. So I'm taking one slide, making a little tweak, going to the next slide, making a little tweak, and going to the next slide. So I can go back and forth. So we start out here, change something, and we're moving forward in time. And it's just multiple slides that are basically all the same, just with little tweaks in them. It looks like animation, but it's not.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
You give the line goes down and city. Did you do a table where you erase the lines in the table?
No, these are just connected lines, like just a little connected line object, I think.
I've seen people who set up a table
And they move. I wasn't doing that. I was just connecting, or just putting different lines. It's one big line that just changes a little bit here and there. Or it might have been a bunch of little lines. Usually the connected lines, I have to go back and look, but it could be just a bunch of little lines and I move them a little bit at each time and change the colors. It's not a lot of work to get something, but this is a key concept for a lot of the things that people in this area do. So I spent time because this.
Once you develop it, then you
use it in other cases. It takes a little bit of time to do, but this is one of those concepts. This is like a very fundamental slide. Everybody has this in their research presentation. So illustrating it with a little bit of animation.
Do you ever save the object itself?
I haven't tried doing that. I usually try and keep it as simple as possible. It may lead to a little more work for me to reformat it, but I can copy that stuff into a new presentation if it has a different theme. Or maybe the objects would be okay too. I haven't tried putting that together. Yes, ma'am.
Back on there. So all of those yellow dots and green dots and dashes, you put those individually on there?
But I do a lot of copy paste. I get a couple of dots and I copy paste two. Then I get 4 dots and I copy paste that. Now I've got 8 dots and I just move stuff around. I've used the arrows to move them around. I nudge stuff around, moving in little bits. It's a little time consuming to get schematics, but you can recycle these things and you can make them look nice. But it doesn't have to be super time consuming once you realize there's a few tools. All it is a few lines and a few dots and some text. So it's just getting it all sorted out. It does take a little more time than just doing a bullet point list, because that's what the other option would be a bunch of bullets about formulate the problem, solve the problem, implement the first move, get a measurement, update the problem, solve it again. That's what the bullet point list would be, and that'd be, they probably see that as well, but when you graphically give them some sort of figure, it can add to the understanding because it shows a lot more of the process. Now, something new and exciting to me, I hadn't played with this before. Have y'all played with Smart Art before? A few people, maybe. PowerPoint has this new option for inserting Smart Art. I knew it was there, but it's actually pretty useful in the new versions. The newer versions have all sorts of different things to represent concepts as opposed to just bullet points. So this is something you might want to spend some time looking at the different options. Now, I've got a couple of examples here I want to show you. But basically, instead of just doing the traditional bullet list, you can do a horizontal bullet list. It's crazy. Something a little bit different. It's the same idea, but you have your different, it's just a little more color and a little different take on things. Venn diagrams, which are actually Euler diagrams. Venns include every single interface, but everybody else calls them Venn. Anyway, there's different options for the visual things. Process, how do you put stuff together to make something new? And it doesn't take a lot of time to put these visual concepts together. You get it together, you take one of the templates, you add some text on there, and it can illustrate what you're trying to do. Cycles. A lot easier than a bullet list, and it doesn't take much more time to do this stuff. It can be hard to edit. The default, you might have a timeline. I think these are difficult to use. Maybe I'm not an expert on these yet, but you get something that looks like this, which doesn't look like a timeline to me. And I want to add some stuff. You can copy and paste in there, and it pretty much automatically formats stuff. But it can be a real bear to get the text lined up or the size. It's not as easy as it could be in some cases. But it's there, and it's an option. If it works for you, it can be pretty useful. Let's see. I wanted to show a couple of these live. So you've got the different list options. There's lots of different things you can switch up there. Process options, how you do different steps in something. A cycle, lots of different cycles and graphs. Hierarchical information could be pretty useful as opposed to bullet point lists. Relationship values, lots of cool arrows. I mean, it's visually more interesting, and it doesn't take as much time because all the basic stuff is there. You just have to put some text in there. And you can copy and paste and move these things around to expand it to make it a little more interesting if you have more complex stuff. So I think that might be a useful option that doesn't take a lot more time. And it can get this. I haven't seen any studies that says that this is definitely better than just using regular old text slides, but at least it looks a little more visually interesting. And if it doesn't add a lot of time to you setting up your slides, why not try it out and see if the students take to it? Images, there's a big push towards doing more visual information, not just for representing your text, but using images because they're more visually appealing. It's inspiring. You retain a lot more stuff visually. And again, I like to include the URL if I'm stealing an image. When I've seen people give presentations on how to give presentations, they say you should keep your camera and take pictures of all sorts of stuff that you might use in your, keep your own list of stock photos so you don't have to worry about rights management. I have a lot of photos because I did a sabbatical in Europe, so I've got pictures of a lot of really cool stuff, but it doesn't necessarily fit what I need in a lot of cases. And there's some useful tools here because you don't want to typically just take a photo and put it in. There's some tools that can make it a little more effective. I just learned this a little while ago. If you have a PC, you can print screen the entire screen of whatever you're looking at. So that's a pretty useful tool. You can't figure out how to copy something out of a Power or PDF. Take a screen grab of it and then paste it in the PowerPoint. You can screen grab a single window, or you can screen grab the entire screen. A lot of people don't